Welcome. I think we should close the door, please. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for this parallel session of the International Climate Summit 2022. It's a hybrid event, directly streamed. So welcome to you all that are physically here, and also welcome to you all that are here with us digitally. The session had a D for decarbonization. And I will talk a little bit before we start about how I understand that word. My name is Karen Landmark. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Greenstat. I also hold a position as Chair of the Board for Greenstat Asia, and have been fortunate enough to work together with my colleagues in India for the last couple of years. So, decarbonization. On the one hand, it's kind of a buzzword. On the other hand, maybe the most important task in the world. And before we allow all your prominent speakers to take the stage, I will see if we can reach a definition of that word that fits this context. The term decarbonization literally means the reduction of carbon. Precisely meant, it's the conversion to an economic system that sustainably reduces and compensates the emission of carbon dioxide. The long-term goal is hence to create a CO2-free global economy. So, decarbonization in the context of this session refers to moving away from energy systems that produce carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions. Maybe a little bit simplified, but I think it fits well. So, we are going in this session to look at initiatives and solutions for speeding and succeeding with decarbonization. We will get insights in several industrial projects, in different market segments, and also look into the infrastructure and the tools that is needing to succeed. There is a lot of things that has to happen in parallel to succeed with decarbonization. And I think the speakers today, all of them represent different parts of the solution. So I'm looking forwards. So in order to pay all of the speakers respect, I will introduce you before your speech. And first one out is Mr. Sturle Pedersen. He is here with us live. Sturle has extensive experience for doing business in Asia and was the sole reason for Greenstat to start approaching the Indian market. In India, Sturle is the chair of the board of Greenstat Hydrogen India, also the chair of the board of Gaxcon India, and also member of the board and one of the initiates behind Humi Hydrogen, a newly founded company that produce electrolyzers. And a lot more, Sturle, but we don't have time to get into that. So the title of your speech is How India Can Unlock Its Green Hydrogen Possibilities. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Is it working? Okay, it's working. Thank you very much for the introduction. And as Karen mentioned, the topic of my address today is how India can unlock its green hydrogen ambition. With climate change being the most urgent challenge of our generation, the global energy landscape has undergone dramatic changes lately. Driven by the need to undertake a deep transition, but also by the political events taking place in Europe in these days. Hydrogen is, as we know, a versatile source of energy that can contribute to decarbonization of the global economy if produced using low carbon emitting sources. Hydrogen will act as a critical enabler to achieving the global target to limit the increase in temperature, adapt to the adverse impact of climate change, and foster low greenhouse gas emission development. There is a lot of excitement these days about green hydrogen, and we can feel it here today. Globally, countries are proposing ambitious targets, and the pilot projects and huge investments are announced on a daily basis, more or less. This is all towards creating a hydrogen ecosystem. The government of India and Norway has shown a strong commitment towards a net zero and to developing hydrogen as a future fuel and feedstock, and make green hydrogen part of the future sustainable energy mix. We heard it today from several of our ministers, how they are committed to zero emission. The key to unlocking the green hydrogen market is, as also been discussed today and pointed out by several of the speakers, is price parity with grey hydrogen. By driving down the cost of solar and wind and achieving price parity with fossil fuel to hydrogen, renewable can accelerate as a carbon-free solution, halt the climate change, and contribute to deliver cleaner and a more sustainable future for our society. The green hydrogen ambition can only happen if renewable energy deployment is accelerated dramatically. Low-cost production is critical to decarbonization. Hard to electrify sectors such as steel and chemical industries, maritime shipping, long-haul road transport, and also aviation needs green hydrogen. The scale of the challenge is substantial, but if the industry, the government, and investors work together, this aim will be achieved. The unlimited supply of renewable energy and capabilities proven by renewable value chain imply that we have green hydrogen production in almost unlimited quantities. There needs to be a collaboration and united approach between the private sector, the government, and the public authorities, and also the investors to fund it to overcome the challenges of scaling up production. We heard that also today from several of the speakers, how important it is of collaboration. Coordinating efforts to increase installed electrolyzers capacity and to develop a domestic manufacturing base of critical components in the hydrogen supply chain need to be dramatically scaled up. Also, not only in India, but in the rest of the world. We see that there is a huge gap today between what we are setting as target and what we have of electrolyzer capabilities. We need to develop solutions to effectively store and distribute and transport hydrogen. This is also one of the topics that was touched upon today. Either it is in gaseous or in liquid form. But last, but even more important, we need to develop and implement a policy framework that support and encourage ongoing private sector innovation in the green hydrogen while securing the future market demand. It is very easy to say that we have the solutions today and our technology is mature and we can implement it, but we know that we need to improve. To deliver low-cost green hydrogen at scale within the next decade and to unlock India's ambition and unique opportunity to be a global leader in green hydrogen can only happen when renewable energy is deployed and accelerated significantly. And there is no time to waste if we are going to deliver on this critical timeline, which is 2030. India needs to establish cost-effective demand-side market for green hydrogen for both domestic and global market. Increasing demand through green procurement will get green hydrogen economy started. It will generate the market size and will help lower the cost of equipment, infrastructure, operating cost, and lower the overall financing cost, which will be a key to get things moving. India's need to develop a strong supply chain is obvious. There is no stakeholder in the marketplace that can take ownership of the entire hydrogen production and distribution process. And if we don't work together, green hydrogen will remain fragmented, unfulfilled, expensive, and we will not be able to unlock its potential as a key component in our energy mix. It is critical to support and develop an infrastructure focusing upon efficient supply and logistic solutions. Storage and distribution need to be factored into the end-to-end green hydrogen market. There needs to be investment in hydrogen grid networks to successfully embed green hydrogen as a mainstream energy source. Lack of infrastructure for green hydrogen transport and storage could represent a risk exposure for future hydrogen projects. Green hydrogen is today produced and consumed at the same location, whereas achieving economies of scale for large green hydrogen facilities and developing a hydrogen economy would require developing shared infrastructure and clusters demand for end consumption. Green hydrogen offers immense potential as we seek to decarbonize the global economy and to address the climate emergency. Innovation will further unlock the potential for renewable energy and accelerating the journey towards net zero. However, again, industry, government, and investors need to work together to build an environment where innovation is encouraged, where market demand is fostered, and where collaboration between different players in the supply chain is also incentivized. Government, universities, and research institutions, together with the clusters and private sector, has been formed, we have formed a center of excellence for collaboration. This will facilitate for improvement in technology. It will provide knowledge, sharing of knowledge and expertise, and not to mention also implement new projects, pilot projects, where we can improve the technology. The Indian government ambition to be a global leader in green hydrogen will also require a framework of policies and regulations that we have mentioned before. And it needs to be adapted to international standards. Today in India, we see that the regulation is not uniform. It is a different regulation in the different provinces, and this needs to be aligned and to be up to international standards and best practices. Lack of this can stall effective execution of the government's hydrogen roadmap and transition to a hydrogen economy. It is also important to use India's advantages in ET and computer science. So digitalization will be a crucial tool and key to speed up the transition. India should establish a single portal for statutory clearances, which will contribute to prevent delays in obtaining permits that currently is obtained from various institutions and agencies. India needs to introduce new policies, instruments and financial support and incentives to reduce the perceived risk among investors and contribute to acceleration in the green hydrogen investment. Our important measure would be to secure long-term access to stable source of renewable electricity to allow maximum capacity factor for the electrolyzers, thereby reducing the levelized cost of hydrogen. If the return is going to be attractive for investors, we need to make sure that the utilization is high. So establishing manufacturing zones will also contribute to speed up the transition and to develop hydrogen strategic industrial clusters that can contribute to lower the cost of hydrogen. And this is something that has been tried out in Denmark and in Germany. So this is also a very important aspect that we need to look into. The absence of sufficient capacity to transport and store green hydrogen and its derivatives in India may delay new projects or force them to run by lower capacity, therefore affecting the profitability and also increasing the financing cost. It will be a crucial task also to develop bunker facilities near ports to storage green ammonia for both export or for fuel for the maritime industry. And it will be a vital part of the infrastructure and scale-up program. As you understand, government policies need to cover the entire value chain of hydrogen, from demand creation through green hydrogen target, to supply and to market enablers, such as infrastructure and supply chain development. The International Climate Summit is part of Greensill's effort to bring together the Indian and Norwegian shareholders to discuss and exchange experience, expertise, and technology, and to encourage each other as we can establish strategic partnerships, as we have heard today, and more is in the pipeline. And we can act now. We should not wait. I wish you all have a great experience and outcome of this International Climate Summit. Thank you.
Very good, Sturle. Thank you so much. You can please be seated. I will take you up on stage again afterwards. So our next speaker is, no? He's not on? No. Okay, so then you let me know if he joins, because then we can go back to him. So then our next speaker is in the room. This is Professor Dayalan Velauta Pillai. I don't think I have ever pronounced your last name, my friend. But, yes. Yes. So let me, before you begin, let me allow to introduce yourself. Yeah. So Professor Dayalan is attached to Faculty of Engineering and Science here at the Western Norway University of Applied Science in Bergen. He leads a broad international research network on advanced nanomaterials for clean energy and health applications that includes Norwegian and international institutions, including Indian universities and private enterprises. He is going to tell us how Norwegian higher education institutions can contribute to skill development, research, and innovation on hydrogen technologies. There are many things I could say about you as well, Dayalan, but you know, time is short.
Yes.
But I can also add that we have a close cooperation with you, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you hear me, isn't it? Do I need a microphone? Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today, to be part of this conference, because, you know, I have been involved with collaborative projects with India for the past 12 years, with a lot of universities, and we have been organizing international conferences in India with the support of the Norwegian Research Council. But I have been always waiting for this moment to invite our Indian colleagues to my city, Bergen, you know. So this is the first time we have a big delegation from India, so I'm so happy, so delighted. Thanks to the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry in India, Greenstad, and all those who are involved, and thanks to all the delegates who have come the whole way from India to Bergen. Thanks a lot. So I would just use this opportunity to say a few words on how my university, for example, HUL, Western Norway University of Applied Sciences in Bergen, and other universities in Norway, how we could contribute to all the aspirations India and Norway has regarding hydrogen. So I think that we could contribute in 4 aspects. Number 1, skill development. That is number 1. I'll come back to that later on. Number 2, innovation and research. Number 3, we can be the interlink between the industry and all the energy stakeholders. You know, we have contact with the civil society and the government sector, higher education. So we can be the interlink. And number 4, the universities can work on feasibility studies. So I will just elaborate on it. First of all, as far as, one moment. As far as skill development is concerned, as we all know, when you have a new technology, you need skilled people. It varies from the technicians to energy leaders, So you need to work on skill development. So I think the first priority is to have vocational training centers. That, of course, we could establish in India on hydrogen. I know that there are vocational training centers in India. But now my university is working with 5 nations, European nations, to establish vocational training centers in these countries on hydrogen. So we could use that model to work with India as well. So that is one thing I would like to contribute to India. The second thing, of course, I have been involved in teaching courses in India as well. So I see that there are not many hydrogen courses available in India, and even in Norway. But we, here in Bergen, we have courses. My university offers 3 different courses on hydrogen. 2 of these courses are for industries, industrial leaders, and so forth. So now with Greenstat, we have been in contact with Indian Oil. I hope that we could tailor these courses such that we could have these courses for the Indian industry as well. So I'm just waiting for the positive reply from Greenstat and Indian Oil. The third thing, of course, the mobility programs. I think it's very important that we work with the universities, students, higher education, and research. That is very important. We in Norway, we have 2 projects, 2 different programs. One is called Utforsk, and the other one is InPart. I have Arvind here from NTNU as well. So we have already proposed one project, InPart project, where we want to work with the Indian universities on hydrogen. Okay, so, and we have already a few students from India here under this Utforsk project. So we had to work with the mobility programs, we had to work with PhDs, we had to work with master programs and so forth. And of course, we should have conferences, webinars, and so forth. Okay, so I think we have to involve the Indian industries as well. We have been, as I said, I've been working with the Indian universities for the past 11 years. But we have a little contact with the industry. So I think this is a good opportunity that we could work with the industry. Okay, so when we come to the second aspect, that is research and innovation. I know that you all agree with me. When you have a new technology, then of course you need innovation, you need research. So when people talk about green hydrogen, we are talking about electrolyzers, and it costs a lot, So it is not competitive. Green hydrogen is not competitive now. So we have to work on new methods, new technologies. So we have a role to play. So in Norway, we have established, the Norwegian Research Council has established actually 16 research centers. 11 of these related to technology and 5 on societal aspects. So recently, they have established 2 centers on hydrogen. That is remarkable. Nobody expected it. But 2 centers, and I am in at one center, high value center. So I will just show what we are going to do. We have got 8 years funding. So we are working with 50 odd end users, and a lot of universities are involved. So the thing is, our aim is to develop knowledge, methodology, and innovative solutions for hydrogen energy carriers to build and support a competitive hydrogen energy sector. It is not clear here, but I think the first priority, the first challenge everybody faces in hydrogen is how to produce, green hydrogen at a better cost. That is the first question. And of course, we have to minimize the energy loss. That's the second thing. So we have to work on it. We have some ideas. I can just elaborate it afterwards. And of course, what about distribution? What about storage? Safety is involved, and it has to be resilient. This is a second fact. The third thing, of course, how can we develop end-user applications, maritime applications, for example, industry applications, these type of things we have to work on. The fourth thing, of course, how to simulate investment. That is the problem. The business they want the profit as soon as possible. So it must not be risky. So these type of things have to be researched. The final thing, of course, the public awareness. I know in India, Sri Lanka, when you talk about hydrogen, people are very skeptical because it could explode. In a car, if you have a car, they are very much afraid. So there must be an awareness campaign. We have to work with the society. So these type of things, of course, we are going to work on. So as far as, I will just show one of these work packages which I am involved in, my research group is involved in. We try to work on new materials. We think that we have to reduce the cost of green hydrogen. The way to go is we have to look into the electrodes. The electrode materials, platinum, radium, and these type of materials are very costly. So we have to reduce the cost. So our students are working on new materials which could be used as electrodes. So we are on the lab level, so we need some industries to work together. And then, of course, other methods. We are talking about solar energy. Okay, then, of course, you use solar energy to produce current and then use the current to produce hydrogen. So there is a supply chain, and there is an energy loss. Why can't we use solar energy directly on water to produce hydrogen? That can be the effective method, So we are trying to work on these type of methods. We are working on PEM electrolysis and Turkish hydrogen and so forth. So as far as research is concerned, we can do a lot. We can work on end-use applications. We can work on storage and distribution. So we have a complete network, and we are ready to work with the Indian universities and Indian energy companies. Okay, so I must also, mention the other FME center. We have another center, research center, Hydrogen E, that is based at Sintef in Trondheim. So there are two, they are working on different type of solutions as well. So please be in touch with all these centers. So the third thing, we can be a key to broader institutional and industrial network. We have collaboration in this center, over 50 companies, Norwegian companies starting from Equinor, Statkraft, and so forth. So this is we can be the link between the Norwegian companies and the Indian companies. And I have collaboration with the Indian universities as well, so we want to expand. I have a collaboration with Coimbatore Institute of Technology, PSC Technology, and Alagappa University. And we have a great network in other countries as well, New Zealand, South Korea, Singapore, Australia. So we can be the interlink. That's what I want to say here. So the last thing, we could work on feasibility studies. If industry needs some feasibility studies, the universities, we could help them. Floating solar may be one of the things. We have already one project in Sri Lanka. We have installed the first pilot floating project with Norwegian technology in Sri Lanka. So we could work on it in India. And how can we combine floating solar with hydrogen production, green hydrogen production? That is one thing. And as you all know, Norway is very good in offshore hydrogen production. So we could work on offshore hydrogen production combined with hydrogen. We have already one feasibility study in Norway, so we can work on these with India. So I think I have used my 9 minutes. So I will stop there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dayalan. It's always a pleasure listening to you and your engagement for cooperation. I think we'll manage to do good things together. And we keep our fingers crossed for INPART.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So, Mr. Ajay Dixit. Yes, please do that while I introduce yourself. Yeah. Do you need help? It's just the cable. You will get help. So, Mr. Dixit, welcome. It's a pleasure having you here. Mr. Dixit is the Executive Director, Corporate HCS from Oil. from Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited. That's right?
Yeah.
Mr. Dixis is a drilling engineer, a well control expert, and what I like, a crisis manager. For is there something the world needs at this point? Is somebody who can manage crisis. You're leading in many critical situations related to well control and blow-ups. Among other things, Mr. Dixit have developed a very competent core central crisis management team, having the capabilities of handling any blowout, well-controlled situations. So we'll wait a few seconds. Yeah, we'll work it out. We have good time, no problem.
Because this is HDMI and this is a C-type.
Oh, you need I think maybe I have. So please interact for half a minute. So then you missed me presenting yourself, but I think I didn't say anything wrong. I just said that what the world need is somebody who has managed in crisis.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
been a crisis manager controlling blowouts,
Yes.
live wells, flowing wells for almost 20 years
Yes.
for the Indian E&P industries
Yeah.
as well as ONGC.
Yeah. Yeah.
So very few E&P companies having these crisis management team. Generally they outsource like wild well control, like Boots and Coots in USA.
Yes. So that's Mr. Dixit's background, and the title of your speech today is the green hydrogen potential. So we are looking forward to hearing you speak, and here we are. The word is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be talking about green hydrogen. Yeah, this is the slide number 1. Okay, just let me go back. Okay, you're right. Yeah. So, what are the ambitions for green hydrogens in India? Everybody knows that all over the world, there's an urgent need to find out an alternative source of energy other than oil, gas, to achieve the net zero target, decarbonization, achieving the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. Those are the major requirements for our Mother Earth. This is crucial for achieving decarbonization of harder to abate sector, fertilizers, refining, methanol, maritime shipping, iron, steel, transport. Then the abatement of 3.6 gigatons of cumulative CO2 emission by 2050, that has been the target given by our PM in COP26, Panchamrit. Then talked about it, 1.5 degrees Celsius, achieving national targets of non-fossil energy capacity of 500 gigabyte by 2030 and meet 50% of its energy requirement till 2030 with renewable energy. That's a huge target we have set, and how to go about it, that is important. Let us see what is the present scenario. First of all, present consumption. Well, as of now, 6 million tons of gray hydrogen is in refining as feedstock to produce ammonia, and methanol is being used. 0.3 million tons is being consumed for steel production. This is the present scenario in factors governing prices. Why green hydrogen is important? Now, the cost of electrolyzers, already you have touched upon many of these points. I brought it into the slides. So, cost of electrolyzers and electricity, operating cost, transmissions, distribution cost, taxes like the goods and services. this is the present consumption and scenario factor governing prices. So we need to focus that. We need to replace this gray hydrogen. And governing prices, we need to focus on the cost reduction of these elements. Then only we will be able to achieve our dreams and what we are aspiring for. Encouraging factors are there. Not everything is discouraging, right? That's why we are here, meeting each other. So competitive levelized cost of electricity for solar and wind in the world, that is one of the encouraging factor. Then declining electrolyzer cost and LCOE would be beneficial for the expansion of GH production in India compared to the production of the gray hydrogen. I think the experts on this can elaborate on that later on. Then expectations, what we expect, what is required, why we are here. Cost of green hydrogen can fall to approximately $1.60 by 2030 and by 0.7 kg by 2050. Green hydrogen market in the India could be 8 billion by 2030 and 340 billion by 2050. That is our expectation, and there is a lot of work to be done. Nothing is going on right now. All gray hydrogen is there. So, why it's not moving further? What's going wrong?
Take it out and in again. Ska vi ta en utväg igen?
Nej, jag tror det är presentationen.
Ser ut som man hängt sig lite upp.
Ja, jag tror den hängs sig.
Let's come to the slide 5. Yeah. So the new hydrogen applications areas like steel and heavy duty vehicles become much more prominent drivers for the green hydrogen market in the long run, making them ideal for small and large scale pilot development. So that's manufacturing opportunities. How do we go about it? Competitive market for green hydrogen translates to a growing demand by production and consumption technologies, electrolyzers, fuel cells. And India's own internal market for electrolyzer could be around 31 billion by the 2050. That is the opportunity here. Export opportunities are there. That is, products such as green steel and green ammonia present a unique opportunity for India, given India's potential and resources to produce them at an economical rate. That is the opportunity. So just we get hold up right every time, right? Is it there? Can we? I'm doing something wrong or what?
No, I'm sure you're not doing anything.
So let me go back to my presentation. Jessica, can I just, okay. Let us do it. It's visible now? better I do it in this way only, right? Because there is something wrong with the, yeah, is it visible now? Oh, again, go now. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So now, what's a roadmap for India to become a global hub of green hydrogen? First of all, National Hydrogen Mission needs to be complemented with the further policy direction in form of a national roadmap. And industry has to decide, industry has to advise the government what should be our policy directives in this scenario so that we can move faster whatever we are aspiring for. Forming up of a timeline and scale of manufacturing support for the electrolyzer, that's very important. Formulate green hydrogen standard. As of now, there are hardly, I'm not sure about it. Do the standards exist, stringent standards exist world over to follow?
Yes, they do. Not in all areas.
Okay. And for that, like we need to create a regulator in India, and then we can follow certain other regulators or the Norwegian regulations we can follow to begin with. All states are required to be encouraged for establishing their own policies considering their needs. You mentioned this point that every provinces have their different rules. So we need to have a uniform policy all over. So that's all for me. Potential for green hydrogen India, it exists, and there is a big market. We can be the top green hydrogen producer and exporter in the future to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dixit.
My
I'm sorry
pleasure.
about your presentation, but you handled that perfectly. Yeah.
There is always a crisis with the crisis.
There is always a crisis to be handled, yes. And that's why it was really nice to see how calm you were in a situation of very small crisis. So, dear Mahendra Rustagi, now the stage is yours. Mahendra is an accountant, cost accountant and company secretary by profession, and has over 35 years of working in corporate sector, holding top management positions. And you're presently the CEO of Creston S&R, an ESG, Environment, Social and Governance, and business consulting firm. And yesterday, we were lucky enough, on behalf of Greenstat, to sign an MOU with you to cooperate on ESG.
Yeah. We were lucky to, maybe more. So we were very lucky that, that we joined hands.
Yes.
And we are going to have a cooperation on ESG and other.
Yeah, we are looking forward.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Rustagi, I have a few more things to say about you before you start. Mahendra has over 3 decades of professional experience, including an entrepreneurial stint, strong experience in multiple functions across the life cycle of business, including setting up the finance function, managing stakeholders, fundraising, and sustainability. Presently, you're also the co-chair of the Environment Committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry that we know so well, and are also part of arranging this conference. Title of your speech, Mahendra, ESG, a tool for sustainable development.
Yeah.
There is no question mark behind that title, so then I hope you have the answer for us. Yes?
Hopefully, yes.
The floor is yours.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, decarbonization, this climate change crisis entire world is facing, and when we talk of the climate change crisis, it is largely, seen as, this carbon emission. And carbon emission, the culprit is seen as, the use of the fossil fuel. And, now gradually it's being, taken care. So, so decarbonization, though, for the sustainable development it is one of the essential element. But there are many solutions to the decarbonization. The science-based technologies and many other initiatives are being taken. But one of the tool for the decarbonization or indirectly, to help the sustainable development is the ESG. ESG would mean to sensitize the business and the corporates to care more for the environment, the society, and to manage in the governed manner. So this is what the ESG is about. So ESG is definitely, and how is going to help the business and how is going to help to take care of the sustainable development, and indirectly, the environmental part of the ESG is directly, the more or less, is connected with the decarbonization initiatives. So ESG integration with the business process reporting will come onto the definition of ESG, and especially on the carbon emission. There are a lot of reporting in the disclosure on the carbon emissions. So indirectly, it put a lot of pressure on the business, and at the same time, a lot of onus on the business to take care of the emissions. So E element means the environment part of the ESG largely deals with the emission. So we are in our next slides, we are going to see. So next slide. Sorry. So under ESG, what exactly is the ESG about, and what are the ESG trends in India? We are going to discuss what is the trend world over, and what is the framework of the ESG. So how do we, all the disclosures, there are many non-financial and non-quantitative disclosures are there. So how do we capture? So they are the, the frameworks, and what exactly is the benefit of ESG. So these are the points I'm going to cover in my presentation. So if we look at the ESG and the sustainability, they are, seen as together, but ESG is a roadmap for the sustainability. Sustainability is much wider a term, and ESG is a kind of a tool to support the sustainability. So we have the three elements: the people, planet, and the profit. And if you look at the equation of the people and the planet, so it has to be bearable. And we look at the planet and the profit, it has to be the viable. People and the profit, it has to be the equitable. And bearable, equitable, and the viable, when these three elements are there, then we call it as sustainable. So ESG is a matrix of three postulates of the creation. That is the environmental, social, and the governance. So on each element or in each postulates, we are going to deal more in details in the next slides. If we talk of the environmental, this is about the climate change strategy, biodiversity, water efficiency, energy efficiency, carbon intensity, environmental management system. So these are the lastly, and we look at, when we talk of the energy efficiency, carbon intensity, it is largely dealing with the carbon emission disclosures. And on the social front, we have the equal opportunities, freedom of association, human rights, product responsibilities, again, very important. So these are a couple of elements which in the form of a detailed disclosure for which the frameworks are prescribed, the corporates are supposed to disclose in their reports. And the governance we talk, of course, this is one of the most important. Means whatever we do, if the company is not governed and the business is not governed and the disclosures are not given in the governed manner, then it doesn't help. So under the governance, we have the compliance part of it, we have the board independence, and we have shareholders democracy. So there are many definitions of ESG, but some of the definition we could pick up. This is a reflection as to how the business impacts its shareholders, the supply chain, employees, customers, and the wider community. The another definition is it's a framework. It's a framework that helps the stakeholders to understand how the organization is managing its risk and opportunities related to the environmental, social, and the governance. And ESG criteria are the set of standards for a company's behavior used by the socially conscious investor to screen the potential investments. So we have seen in our previous slides, under the 3 dimensions, the environmental dimension, they covers all elements connected with the environment. And then we have, under the social dimension, we have, the impact of the business onto the employees, to the customer, on the vendors, and on the community. And under each category, then, the disclosure is supposed to be made on sub-elements under each, like for the employees, on the workplace safety, about their engagement, about the diversity and the inclusion. And if it comes to the vendor and the supply chain, then their loyalty, vendor relationship. And there are many parameters for the community: human rights, women rights, gender equality, and the race equality. And on the governance, as we have seen, the investors' relationship, business ethics, transparent accounting and the audits, anti-bribery and anti-corruption policy, whistleblower policy, and the political influence. Now let's look at how ESG got evolved in India. It's been 11 years. Now we are in 22. The whole concept started with some minimal disclosure, and it was voluntarily. There was no mandatory requirement. So many corporates initiated who were a little sensitive to all these elements of the environment, social, and the governance, but very few of them. But now the journey, every 2-3 years there have been some developments, and now in 2021, the government of India, through a circular on announcement, notification by the SEBI, which is which controls the capital markets, a regulator to regulate the capital market. So they came out with a notification that the top 1,000 companies, they are supposed to make the disclosure on ESG and called the sustainability report. So this is now become mandatory, and it is starting from the current financial year. So we are passing through a financial year of 22-23, starting from 1st April 22 to 31st March 23. So these companies are mandatorily, as the year is going to close, the companies have already started preparing for that. The companies, most of the companies are not really prepared. We are having discussion with many companies. They are doing something or other in a very little disorganized manner. Not that means there is no system and all, but now to put the entire thing into the framework, they have started taking initiative. So if we look at the framework, there are many frameworks internationally, maybe more than 10, but one of the most, the implemented framework is the Global Reporting Initiative. Around the 70% of the corporates in the world, they are following GRI standards, which, apart from the environmental practice, it includes even the human right practice, governance, and the social responsibilities. So these are the framework where the non-quantitative, the aspect is, how they are supposed to cover, and then the report on those points. This is what the framework is all about. Then we have many others. And the last one is the BRSR, which is the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. BRSR, India has introduced this only about a year back. But this is so comprehensive. And it's not only in India, but the world over, it's the most admired, and even the other countries are looking at this BRSR framework, what the Indian government has introduced. And in the BRSR, under the all 3 environmental, societal, and the governance, they are on each the aspect, there are many points, and the much more detailing. They're running into maybe 100 of the pages in a very minute details. The reporting is supposed to be made, and some of the indicators are essential, where the corporate has no escape but to report. But and maybe some of them, they are only, they call it a leadership indicator, where the corporate has the discretion. They may or may not report. So under the BRSR, these are the performance indicator which the Indian corporates are supposed to be reporting. And in the environmental part, so these are the things the corporate is supposed to report under the each head. Then they are again the sub-points. Some of them they are in the quantitative manner, some of them they are in the qualitative manners. So, and then let's come on to the global ESG trend. Now, investor-driven momentum puts the greater focus on the integration of the ESG practice. The world over, this ESG practice is being integrated with the business process. So this is one. Now, the climate commitment at the international forums have shifted the burden of ensuring its implementation to the corporates. After this whole thing of the ESG, now the onus and the burden has been shifted to the corporates. Elaborate disclosures norms have shifted from the data-centric to the impact-driven reporting. So these are some of the global trends. We'll come on to what all is happening in the different parts of the world in the next slide. Now, if we look at the most of the advanced and the developing countries, they are already into ESG reporting. And in many countries, lastly, the capital market or the securities market operations are linked with this thing. If the corporate is not the ESG compliant, they cannot raise the money in many markets. Or even if the rating is so down, the investors are not going to invest the money in those corporates. So, these are, if we look at the New Zealand, in some form or other, there is a pressure on the corporate to go for ESG integration. UK, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Tokyo, so almost the world, the developing and the developed part of the world is already covered. In EU, many actions are being taken and on the ESG, but these are one of the development is that is starting from the year 2024. For the year 2023, any corporate or any business entity is having 250 employees or turnover, which is more than or 40 million euros, or assets 20 million euros, they are supposed to mandatorily, issue the sustainability report. This is what our understanding is. In India, within 1 minute, then I'll finish. The SEBI has mandated, we already covered. There are many funds they are ESG funds. They call the ESG funds. And look at the kind of the asset under the management is the huge. And the performance of these funds have been much better than the other funds. So this means the investment decision, which is based on the ESG, has given a better return. Now, the ESG score rating system is already in place. And though it is not mandatory, but based on the data which is available in the public domain, the ESG rating company, they are assessing all the corporates as to how they are faring on the ESG front. So I'll skip all these things. So last, this thing, BRSR, they are the 9 principles which have been laid out, and every aspect has to be judged with respect to these 9 principles of the BRSR. Even these 9 principles have been tagged, mapped with all the SDGs, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So these are the benefits: more customer, better access to the resources, better brand, better valuation, employee morale is boosted, improved the productivity, and on the governance part, so these are the benefits. So conclusion is that ESG integration with the business process and the reporting, especially on the carbon emissions, would help the industrial decarbonization, and intense ESG reporting on the carbon emissions and its significant weightage in ESG score. So I say ESG is clearly a tool for sustainable development and for the decarbonization. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Mahendra, and I'm so sorry to interrupt an accountant in his details, but there was a little bit time running out, but I think you can share the presentation with us, maybe,
Yeah,
so we
sure.
can
No,
have the details.
I have almost covered, but I'll definitely
Yes,
share.
and I'm really, really happy to see how you put...
I'm sorry, I've exceeded by...
No, you did not, so I stopped you in time. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I finished early for you, actually.
Yeah, you did, yes.
Thank you very much.
You had
Yeah,
maybe 7 minutes time. I thought
In case of a crisis, you saved some time for the accountants, yes. So we're jumping a little bit back and forth in this session, but it's kind of makes sense still, because it's something to do with the industrial projects that we need to succeed, but also the tools, the regulations, and the methods that we need to imply. So there's a link to this. But now we go back to Norway. Mr. Egil Rensvik. PM, I was curious about if that was not Prime Minister, but it's a Principal Manager.
Prime Minister, yes.
Principal Manager, yes. In NORWEP, Norwegian Energy Partners. That's a group of Norwegian companies delivering service and equipment in the LNG sector and hybrid energy solution, combining different energy sources. LNG, biogas, wind, solar with batteries and hydrogen. Mr. Rensvik came from position as Science and Technology Counselor for Innovation Norway at the Royal Embassy in Singapore, Royal Norwegian Embassy, where you spent some years from 2010 to 2016, where you focused on the maritime and oil and gas sector. You have also been working a lot in Asia after that, an engineer to begin with, quite a long time ago. The title of your speech, Egil, is How Blue Hydrogen Can Play a Part in the Energy Transition. So the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Dear all, and I'm glad to see so many people from India. As you mentioned, I've been working in Singapore, and that my position there was with Innovation Norway and overlooking also South and Southeast Asia, especially on the energy side. So we also worked in India, and I've been in India many times since, especially on the LNG side. We're having conferences and workshops with Norwegian companies, and with and looking at the cooperation with the Indian companies and governments. So my presentation now will look into a little bit what we have done in the past. First of all, Norwegian Energy Partners is an interest organization. It's sponsored by the Ministry of Energy in Norway, Energy and Oil and Gas. And they are looking members, and now we're covering more than just oil and gas. So we are covering all the industries in the energy side to see how we can work together to get more into the international market for cooperation with partners. So we have a lot of partners in Norway, as mentioned, cover a lot of these industry areas. So I will not cover all this, but I will touch upon one project or for an area which I cover now, which is the Energy Network Norway, which is a part of NORWEP. And I think I will just start with a small film.
What does the future of energy look like? And how do we get there? Renewables is one answer. But the wind does not always blow, and the sun does not always shine. A gap in the world's energy demand is growing. A gap that needs to be connected with a clean, safe, and secure energy supply chain. Yet today's energy supply chains are complex and require domain knowledge from many competing sectors. To move towards a sustainable energy future, we can no longer compete, we must collaborate. Introducing Energy Network Norway, consisting of more than 25 of Norway's pioneers of innovative, cost-effective and scalable technology. We unite turnkey services with flexibility across all energy sectors. We call this hybrid energy. Our hybrid energy supply chain combines cleaner LNG with hydrogen, other renewable energy and carbon capture. The hybrid energy arena provides the creative space to connect your evolving energy value chain. Our industry-proven solutions come from companies with over 20 years of experience at the global forefront of the energy transition. No matter the climate or the season, we have your energy supply covered. Energy Network Norway is about connecting great minds towards solving the energy challenge of tomorrow. Energy Network Norway. Ideas from nature into energy.
So what you saw now was that we are working on with several companies, try to get to cover the whole value chain on the energy side. Starting, as mentioned, with the LNG, which was, we have more than 20 years experience in the LNG side in Norway. Starting up with the ferries, as we already seen this morning. And you saw these ferries, they are moving now from LNG to batteries or hybrid solutions. And now also some of them have been new test projects on the hydrogen side. So the meaning with this kind of network, business network, is to work together to cover more of this value chain. Not necessarily that Norway is going to deliver all these kind of things, but having the complete concept of the value chain and working together with international partners for completing this also internationally. So as you see, we have some names like Nel on the hydrogen side. We also have the SINTEF on the research side, and we also have shipping lines, which are really moving now into the new area of energy. They have been, and when we started up with the LNG side, we saw that different countries, they need energy, and we have this floating storage and regasification units, which is a import terminal, so to say, but it's flexible. It's easier than building a large terminal as such, and you can use these kind of vessels that has been developed in Norway with international partners. But this gives us also a possibility to distribute LNG as the energy in small scale, because you can tap small parts and distribute it. And that was what we discussed also in India some years back, to see how we can, on the import terminals, and see how we can distribute it along the coast side of India. I think there are some projects now ongoing, so there are several projects coming up. And then Norway, as you see, we have more than 20 years of experience operating these kind of vessels. And we see that the shipping lines, they're moved from LNG in Norway to batteries and now to hydrogen. Internationally, on the large cruise liners, all of the new cruise liners have now been implemented with LNG fuel. Of course, they are very concerned about the emissions from these kind of vessels. So they are looking also for combination with ammonia and also hydrogen in the future. But what we can see is that the Norwegian companies on the equipment side, they are forerunners now, developing new technology also to cover the ammonia and also hydrogen. And like the Coastal Express or the Hurtigruten, which is called from Bergen up to Kirkenes, they have converted now a lot of these vessels to be running on LNG, which can be also converted into use of biofuel. So this is also an aspect of reducing the emissions. And I believe the new Havila ferries vessels, which are now 2 of them in operation, they are also looking at how to use a part of that fuel with hydrogen. So these shipping lines, they are really forerunners by implementing the new technology and new solutions on the energy side. And then we also see like the large seagoing vessels, like these car carriers from Höegh, having around 8,000 cars. This has now been with LNG and ammonia ready, So they are now implementing ammonia as a part of the fuel solution. Oh, it's 9,000, sorry. They are larger and larger every year. And then also these design companies like Moss, working together with Equinor and with Wilhelmsen, looking at the new design of carriers for liquefied hydrogen. So new technology has to be implemented. We are talking about also the regulations and the standards. You mentioned that everything is on place. I'm not quite sure if that's completely correct in every case, because they are now working on also how to implement, let's say, the right concept, the right materials, and all these things on the vessels. So they are on the way. I would just also mention that when we are working on these kind of projects, some small companies come up and looking at new concepts. Instead of building large terminals, quays, piersides, we can use more flexible solution. And this eConnect Energy is looking at the platform, which can take flexible hoses, cryogenic hoses, can transport LNG from the shore side to the vessel and loading cargo like LNG. But they're also looking at how to get into the situation when we have the necessary, you need to transport other gases. So these companies are working on not only LNG as one gas, but also different gases. And now you see when you try to get rid of all the CO2 and this CCS, let's say, activities that are in Norway, in many companies, from the capture to the immediate the transport, temporary storage, and permanent storage. And I believe tomorrow we will hear more about the Northern Lights project, which is one of them. There are a couple of more in Norway. And I think that's an interesting development when you see capture, because there are small quantities, so you have to capture it from many locations into immediate storage, and then transport it into and hopefully it will be a user in the other end, and not just put into the North Sea, because we have to get some money out of this. So that's a challenge, but I think people are working on it. So, and then this kind of platforms can also be used for CO2 transportation. I believe that these kind of companies, they are really working on, let's say, the infrastructure, transport, and see how we can really move from the, let's say, fossil fuel type of energy and gases into the new area when we have greener solution, both on ammonia and also on hydrogen. And these companies, they have long-term experience in this kind of things, and this combination and needs, which we have already seen, combination of wind and solar and hydropower, is also a part of this, let's say, transition into the greener future. So this was just a glance of some of the companies, and I'm happy to share with you and discuss with you possible cooperation also with India to see how we can do something more, not in the new, let's say, greener energy future. We have good experience with arranging cooperation seminars and activities and visits in India, and I'm happy to follow up if that is of interest and needed. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Egil. Thank you. So actually I cheated you for a break. So my suggestion now is that we have 2 more speakers. So I suggest that we just do it, and we get a little longer break than the others before the next session. So sorry about that. That was just to keep you in the room. Yes. So the next one up is Mr. Umesh Sadev, Chairman Hydrogenium Research Private Limited. I'm sure that we will hear more about your job. You have more than 5 decades of professional experience in planning development of industrial projects in a vast spectrum of industries, managing businesses of global companies, identifying business opportunities, and strategic planning of investment projects, carbon offset projects, and managing private equity investment for sustainability and climate change mitigation projects. Umesh, you are working towards development of range of green hydrogen projects within the whole value chain, and also supporting a highly innovative Indian company of low-cost membrane, less electrolyzer for their global commercialization. We are looking forward to hear your speech, and the title of that is Carbon Credits Within Hydrogen Ecosystem.
Thank you, Kevin.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Friends, good afternoon. Green and low carbon hydrogen solutions are considered as an important step during the transition phase to net zero, we all know. With mounting government regulation and investor pressures to decarbonize, manufacturing, energy, and transportation sector companies are increasingly turning to hydrogen to reduce their carbon footprints. In this, in this big momentum being built up on a global efforts to reach net zero and to carbon emissions by 2050, hydrogen's credentials as the most potent renewable energy carrier, or rather de facto energy source, are coming to the fore. That can play a major role in global drive toward decarbonization. While carbon capture minimizes the industry's present carbon emissions, emerging forms of clean energy will play a prominent role in long-term decarbonization. Clean and green energy, green hydrogen, has 3 primary applications in a decarbonizing economy. This as a fuel, of course, and then the energy storage and basically load balancing, and as a feedstock. These applications occur in all sectors, including transportation, industry, agriculture, power, and hard-to-abate carbon emission-intensive industrial sectors like steel and cement, by replacing fossil fuels, and could possibly meet 15 to 20% of global energy demand by 2050. Due to its versatility and scalability, clean hydrogen could be a game changer in global decarbonization. There are more than 50 policies globally that are supporting hydrogen, with the International Energy Agency declaring this as unprecedented momentum in the world's energy discourse. Launch of Fit for 55% reduction of carbon emission by 2030 by European Union is clear indication of how much importance hydrogen is getting in Europe. Think tanks and policy planners around the world viewing hydrogen as the promising energy mitigator, the potent tool for decarbonize, are working overtimes on plans and policy initiatives to support industries, particularly heavy industries, shipping, aviation, emission-free public transportation, trucking, trains, industrial and domestic heating, and similar other applications. Developing and commercialization of all these sectors is so important for establishing a strong and mass market for hydrogen. The big boost Fit for 55 for green hydrogen results in the EU ETS reforms, may also introduce free carbon allowances for green hydrogen or electrolyzers producers to let them be at par with low carbon hydrogen producers. With EU proactively pursuing hydrogen, green energy may get its first ever dedicated EU targets of around 50% in the renewable energy directives. Complementing these initiatives, there could be possibilities of tax adjustments on the use of hydrogen and other energy sources, wherein hydrogen getting better support. For this promising outlook and unprecedented momentum of hydrogen moving at light speed on the next energy market disruptor, basically next energy market disruptor, big technological interventions are needed to bridge the gap, and substantial cost reductions to deliver required results. Investments in billions of dollars are required in the next 10 years along the entire hydrogen value chain in support of this evolution. One of the potent sources of this required investment could be international climate markets. If in case finance could be unlocked from these markets. Thus, concept of creating and trading hydrogen credits similar to carbon credits as per Kyoto Protocol is proposed to incentivize global hydrogen economy and develop new pathways towards carbon neutral net zero future. I'm sure with some initiatives being already undertaken globally, we should soon have framework and establishment of a global hydrogen offset markets. Research projects are going on to create framework, and also few initiatives have already been taken in the direction after last Beijing Winter Olympics, where more than 1,200 buses plying on green hydrogen were used during the games. These Chinese organizations have initiated and are working toward planning and creating an international carbon market by green hydrogen, for green hydrogen. The project that supplied green hydrogen for these hydrogen buses during Beijing Winter Olympic could become the first of its kind to sell hydrogen-based carbon credits through the CDM route. They have submitted a proposed methodology for calculation of emission reductions by hydrogen from renewable energy sources. The PDD was submitted in May 22. Within months of China unveiling long-term green hydrogen plan that would seek to produce about 200,000 tons of green hydrogen annually by 2025. In case of approval of this methodology, it could be up for review to be included in the CDM under Kyoto Protocol as we saw in Paris Declaration. This initiative was prompted due to Chinese domestic carbon market not covering green hydrogen projects despite ambitious Chinese plans for hydrogen as clean energy. So this initiative was created by privately to create, tool and seek global funding in the form of hydrogen carbon credits for now and for future. China's United Hydrogen Technology Research Institute, Longyun AMC, and Shanghai Environment and Energy Exchange are the proponents of this methodology submitted. As per preliminary recommendation of this methodology panel, it seems the projects with greenfield hydrogen power plants or additional capacity in an existing plant or a retrofit would only qualify. The parameters for leakage, double counting, and additionality are being closely studied, and once the methodology is approved, it will provide big boost to all the renewable energy-based hydrogen projects and shall act as a significant financial incentive for creating new capacities. It's indicated that carbon credits so approved would possibly be issued to producers and not users to avoid double counting. Once proponents are able to address to some of the concern that math panel has decided, it could be taken for approval or rejection. We'll have to see that. However, green hydrogen methodology approval would make huge impact on low-cost renewable energy producer worldwide to be able to export their surplus renewable energy beyond their borders. That's what our Prime Minister is actually foreseeing. That's a big deal going to be in case that becomes possible. This will be in the shape of, like we can export energy in the shape of hydrogen. This will transform global energy geopolitics with substantial incentives that could quicken up the global net zero transition further. Right now, low carbon hydrogen is costly and not cost competitive. It needs price parity with fossil fuels in general to become key player. The world is totally focused on cost reductions, but alongside, if hydrogen offset market could also be made available, it will compensate the cost to a good extent, thereby fast forwarding the decarbonization by hydrogen. Thus, to unlock carbon finance in the international carbon market has been identified as a substantial opportunity where global players, including our company, Hydrogenium, are working to creating and proposing new methodologies for approval by international agencies like Gold Standard and Vera. One of the major being Swiss company also, South Pole, has proposed ambitious hydrogen to net zero platform to develop methodologies to create full suite of low carbon hydrogen activities to drive the carbon finance from carbon market to utilize potential of low carbon hydrogen sector. They propose to apply this methodology to the projects in the entire supply chain within hydrogen ecosystem, including application covering full spectrum of industrial and multimodal mobility sector. Dear friends, there is potential, there is big opportunity, and there is a good cause to aim for carbon-free decarbonized environment through hydrogen. Thus, it is imperative that leading players view this as big opportunity to come forward and invest their time and efforts to creating new methodology within the entire ecosystem of hydrogen, so that carbon finance could become one of the major source of investment for development of hydrogen ecosystem and thus overall decarbonization. In line with these these initiatives, our company, Hydrogenium, is also actively pursuing to become a value player in facilitating hydrogen economy. We are planning a platform of stakeholders within hydrogen value chain through exponential technologies driven, I will call it TIDO, which is technology companies, investors, developers, and offset platform. That offset platform could have a repository and also MRV facilities, which can be linked up with other players. Hydrogen ecosystem is evolving. We need more players, more facilitators as key motivators to create and drive international hydrogen market to become the major source and one of the important tools for the development and growth of hydrogen value chain and decarbonization. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sane. Very nice, very, very nice. So, last but not least, Sri Alok Sharma, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
there. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So please allow me to spend 1 minute in the beginning before you start by introducing you.
Sure.
Mr. Alok Sharma is the Executive Director at Center for High Technology under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. A chemical engineer from Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi, over 30 years of experience working for Indian Oil, including R&D and refinery in the areas of process, project, and production. Mr. Sharma has been instrumental in setting up hydroprocessing, gasification, biofuels, hydrogen, and fuel cell-related facilities at Indian Oil R&D. An expert in hydroprocessing, he has excellent knowledge of energy transition aspects. He also received World Petroleum Congress Excellence Award in 2008 and was selected for prestigious Endeavor Awards in 2009, including other things. He has over 30 granted patents in his name. That is impressive. You have also guided 2 PhD scholars and successfully mentored 2 startups in the area of alternative energy. The title of your speech is Decarbonizing India's Transport Sector, where you, among other issues, will touch on what initiatives are taken in and by the transport sector. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you have been around and you've been able to listen to the physical side of the session. So the floor is yours, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone joining from Norway and India. And actually, initially, I was having 2 talks. One was on the transportation side and one was on the hydrogen usage in oil and gas sector. So I've tried to club both now, and I will be touching upon both. So in India, we have 2 big tasks at hand. One is like energy independence by 2047, and we are also working towards our mandate given by our Honorable Prime Minister, that is net zero carbon by 2070. As far as hydrogen is concerned, it was way back in 2005 when I was at Indian Oil. We started the work on the hydrogen, and we initiated work in the area of hydrogen blended with CNG, because a lot of CNG network was already there, and CNG was well used in the transport sector. And the initiated work basically it took us about 3 to 4 years, and we finally concluded that up to 18% of hydrogen can be mixed in CNG, and it can be used as such. And see, as far as hydrogen is, next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Sharing this,
I've given the access to.
he's given access.
Yeah.
Sharing his screen, so he must the arrow.
Can you just try to use the arrow, Mr.
Yes,
Sharma?
okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think are you able to see? Yeah. So a lot of initiatives have been taken in this direction, and renewable energy is one. Then a lot of work going on the biomass gasification. A lot of work now in the recent past on the hydrogen production, because a lot of hydrogen is being used by refineries, fertilizer units, and even a lot of hydrogen is used in the steel industry also. And this is what our Prime Minister announced on the 15th of August, our Independence Day in 2021, that we have to be net exporter of hydrogen by 2030. That's a big task being given, and in line with that, National Hydrogen Mission and Policy was launched, and on February 17, 2022, and in which government has waived off the transmission charges for the next 25 years, just to promote green hydrogen. Again, the second phase of National Hydrogen Mission is under finalization and is likely to be declared soon. And India's competitive edge, coupled with government efforts, so merchant hydrogen will be viable, economically viable. At this stage, it is not viable because, see, we produce a lot of hydrogen in the refineries, and the current cost of hydrogen in the refineries is about $2. But once it comes to the market, after a lot of transport charges, the charges are the cost of the hydrogen comes to about $10 to $12. Even we are producing a lot of hydrogen. In my previous corporation where I was working, the hydrogen production was at about $2, and we used to get hydrogen after transportation at about $10 in our labs at Indian Oil R&D. So this will also see a lot of pushes there, and we will be able to meet, I think, this target of ambitious target of 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. As far as hydrogen goes, see, it has a lot of applications, as you can see, oil and gas sector, steel sector. Again, it can be used for heating, heating purpose also, as a storage media for fluctuating power supply, like the renewable power supply. This, as you can see here, that oil and gas sector is currently producing gray hydrogen at a US $2 kg per hour, which I told you. But there are plans of 130,000 of tons per annum of green hydrogen to be produced in the next 3 to 4 years. Already a lot of initiatives have been taken by oil and gas companies here. These are some of the initiatives which have been taken by the various companies in India. Reliance, of course, you know, this is the biggest organization in India now. They have announced that they are aiming to produce hydrogen at $1 per kg. They have signed MOU with Danish company. Then again, this Gas Authority of India, which is the largest gas suppliers of India, they are also doing some pilot study. They have initiated to blend hydrogen in the natural gas network, and they are also working big to do big upon mixing greater percentage of hydrogen. I would just like to add here that there is no mandate as such on date for blending hydrogen in the natural gas network. I am part of one of the committee. I am the convener for ISO 193, which is working on the like what maximum percentage of hydrogen can be blended with the natural gas. So this way, the outcome will be there in about a year. And BPCL, of course, this is Bharat Petroleum. Again, this is the oil company which is collaborating with to produce electrolyzers indigenously. Again, Indian Oil, where I was working earlier, so they have initiated 2 projects of 2,000 tons per annum and 5,000 tons per annum green hydrogen production. A big initiative which I told you about, the HCNG. This was also tested in 50 CNG buses And this was very successful, and it can be concluded that 18% of hydrogen in CNG can be used in the hydrogen in CNG can be used. And a big project again is going on where funding is from the Ministry of Petroleum. There 15 fuel cell buses are being developed, and they will be demonstrated from hydrogen from 4 different pathways. I will come to that in the next slide. NTPC, the power company, is also setting up some fuel cell. They want to run some fuel cell buses in Leh and Ladakh in the northern part of India. They are also trying to use green hydrogen from renewable energy. L&T, again, a big manufacturing company here. They have signed MOUs with some of the companies to produce electrolyzers. Adani, again, a big power producer. They have joined hands with Total Energy to produce green hydrogen JV. They are putting up a JV of $50 billion. And HPCL, again, an oil company, they are setting up 2-3 green hydrogen plants there in refineries. See, as far as decarbonization of the transport sector is concerned, in 2009, the government of India released the first ever national action plan on climate change. And there were 8 missions, listed in this. And the main mission, which was on National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, was towards decarbonization or reducing emissions toward transport in the transport sector. There were some, this included, like I will just want to mention here that there were 3 different strategies were there. One was to attack the travel demand and model choice management. Then energy efficiency, of course, everybody wants to work on the efficiency side and to improve the efficiencies, and this will ultimately help in decarbonization. The final one, which was on the diversification towards low carbon energy vectors, in 2015 it was announced that hydrogen and biofuels will be one of the major sources under this low carbon energy vectors. So this was way back about 6-7 years back. It was decided to go for hydrogen and biofuels. You can see these low energy vectors: hydrogen, of course, biofuels, where ethanol blending is there, biodiesel is there, then bio CNG is there. A lot of stations are coming for bio CNG. Hydrogen, of course, I told you about hydrogen. Then electrification, EV, again, there's a big push, and a lot of push is there on the car market, which is the biggest market in India for under the vehicle segment. And then again, usage of LNG or CNG. This is currently, India is at 6.5% usage of gas-based economy. So we want to increase it up to 15%. So this is one of the main targets which we have for the low carbon energy vectors. Now, decarbonization of again transport sector. So I told you about the National Hydrogen Mission. So there are very good targets given here. Then biofuel policy, of course, I will touch upon in the next slide. A lot of push to the renewable energy is there. This is what the project I was mentioning about, the big project being taken up for the transport sector, where Indian Oil is setting up hydrogen production from 4 pathways. One is the biomass gasification, because India is an agrarian country and a lot of biomass is there. So we are focusing on the biomass gasification, solar electrolysis, where different types of electrolyzers like alkaline, PEM, and even SOEC is being targeted, and they are being put up. Natural gas reforming, of course, it is a well-known process, and biomethane. Reforming of biomethane is also will be tried in this. We are also trying to develop the hydrogen storage tanks, type 3 cylinder, type 4 cylinders, and also we are working on this fuel cell stack development, indigenous development of the fuel cell stack, where 15 buses are being developed, and they will be running for 20,000 kilometers in and around Delhi. So this project will be live within a year now. Already 2 years have passed. So this will be live in 2 years. And our honorable minister has also have this Mirai Toyota car. As you may be aware that already Japan, they are having more than 150 hydrogen stations, and Mirai and Clarity. The Clarity is from Honda and Mirai is from Toyota. So these cars are being run in various parts of in the various countries, and especially in Japan. And as far as challenges in the transport sector are concerned, see, hydrogen production, there's a lot of challenge at this stage, because I see that hydrogen production through electrolyzers, the current cost is not less than $5 to $6, even because ultimately you want to produce the hydrogen where you want to use it. So as far as refineries are concerned, it is okay because they will be using hydrogen for the captive use only. So they can have power, green power from the power grid, and they can set up the electrolyzers at the refinery. However, the issues again, there are supply of electrolyzers, then requirement of water for the electrolysis, and again the issue of using distributed versus centralized hydrogen production. Because for the transport section, the major problem is the chicken and egg conundrum is there, because hydrogen infrastructure is not there. So how to bring hydrogen to the vehicles? So that is one of the main challenge there. And the other challenge is we don't have fuel cell vehicles, or even the hydrogen in the IC engine is not well proven. So in this case, there are demonstration projects which have been taken up, and ultimately these demonstration projects will guide the future of the hydrogen in transport sector. And of course, as I told you, that there is a lot of work going on in the pipeline side for transporting hydrogen, in the high pressure storage side, then material-based hydrogen storage, underground storage, and cryogenic hydrogen supply in India. A lot of work has been initiated by, and I can just tell you that our Ministry of Petroleum, where I'm part of we are the technical wing for the Ministry of Petroleum, and Ministry of Petroleum is giving a lot of funding for both hydrogen as well as for the biofuels. So there is about 15 million USD has been given for the big hydrogen fuel cell project, which I showed you in the last slide. There's a lot of funding for the 2G ethanol projects, a lot of funding for the biomethanation plants. So government is supporting in a big way for the decarbonization of the oil and gas as well as transport sector. Again, in the hydrogen side, there are issues of safety codes and standard, and public acceptance is again a big challenge which we have to target. I think that's it from me. I just want to end with I used to write that hydrogen in my sign at the emails. I used to write hydrogen, the future is nearer, but now I write hydrogen, the future is here. Thank you very much.
Very good, Mr. Sharma. Please stay online for a little while longer.
Yeah, sure.
We are approaching the end, but I would like all the speakers to join me on stage for a couple minutes before we leave each other. Can you do that? And I think we have some microphones we can share. Yes, if you take one there, Sturle. We can just share them. Please just, we have to, I think, just stand a little bit close. There is no COVID anymore, so now we can. So, we do not have time for a long conversation, so I want to challenge you with a question, and I give you only a few seconds to answer each, maximum 20 seconds. Yes. So my question is, and we can start with you, Umesh. What are the main reasons to remain optimistic when it comes to the possibility of succeeding with decarbonization? The main reasons for staying optimistic.
Just your survival, because everybody knows one's survival is in danger. So we have to work against that.
Okay.
Otherwise we will not survive.
Very good.
That's simple.
Good. Sturle?
We have only one planet, so we have to work towards it. That's it. That is it. That is the bottom line. And nothing is impossible as we have evolved like anything in the last 50 years.
Yes.
So that's the reason.
Good.
It's possible.
It's possible. That's a good point. Sturle?
No, I think it is the awareness. We have seen a major change in people's awareness and the urgency to address the climate change. We all feel it. We see it on a daily basis. So I think that is what is needed to change the habit. And today we heard also Sri Shankar talking about the ancient wisdom and to kind of make sure that people are educated. And I think we are focusing on education, and we are thinking about changing as people how we live.
And
Dylan, that was a good ball to you, I think.
Yes, I think the first thing is, of course, government policies. As somebody mentioned here, 50 governments have already have their hydrogen energy policies, So that is great. Just in 2-3 years, 50 governments have, The other thing is, of course, research and education, as Sturla pointed out. We are looking at good results, promising results. So I think there is going to be new generation of hydrogen production techniques and materials which could help us. So I hope.
Very good. Yeah, Egil?
I think the awareness over the last years, not very many years, I think the last 5 years maybe, has set up, well, it's the pollution. The large cities are covered with pollution. They have problems. We have to do something. And I think this is doing something. There has been very much awareness of all industries.
So a sense of urgency.
Yes, and say, well, it's not only the CO2, it's only it's the other pollutions which are really disturbing all the quality of life in the city. So I think this awareness, it tapped down to the companies, those making the different tools and production and ships and vessels and whatever.
Very good. So Mahendra, are there any reasons for optimism?
See, this necessity is the mother of invention. So, the situation the entire world is into is almost a crisis situation. The environmental impact, the pollution, and impact on the health and the business and everything. And then, the awareness being created and the government's action on that. So all these factors are contributing, and hence, we see this is high time. There's something need to be done.
Yeah.
And a lot of actions are being taken.
Very good, Mahendra. So, Mr. Sharma, are there any reasons to stay optimistic?
Yeah, I think already it is covered mostly by all the speakers, and I just want to add here that we have in India, our Prime Minister had given us initially some task of like solar energy of 450 gigawatt. So that has been that we are already on track to achieve it. So once the targets are given, people try to achieve it, and a lot of push is there because the air quality in Delhi and in India, especially in many cities, is very bad. And people are aware now, and they want to get out of it. And of course, we will work together, and we have the confidence that we will achieve it.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, you may.
I think the other thing, of course, the energy demand, which you see now, in Europe, for energy and the prices for electricity, So this is going to be helpful, I think.
Any last words?
Can we do anything without decarbonization?
No.
It has to be.
Yes, so it has to be done.
No other way.
Yes.
It's a matter of survival.
Yes.
I think there is one more thing that we perhaps did not put much emphasis on, but technology can change our life. And I think that with this urgency and the government and all the different stakeholders working together to improve current technology, we would see that we will achieve our goals. Sure. But the common thing is that we need to work together. And I think that the awareness and the understanding for working together, that nobody can make this themselves, either it's a company or a nation, will make the difference.
The whole globe is one family.
Yes, the whole universe is one family. So then this concludes a really, really good session. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining physically, and thank you so much, Mr. Sharma, for joining.
Thank you.
And thank you for everybody listening. And we will continue the conversation, but we will have focus on action in the years to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Ja, så jeg skulle lyst til å ta deg i hånden.